What is up, denizens of the interwebs? It's Arza Chats here coming at you with another video, and it looks like we're talking about Ubisoft again, because they cannot just stop screwing the pooch. After the absolute failure of Star Wars Outlaws, the absolute failure that was their attempts at marketing Assassin's Creed Shadows, which led to them recalling a statuette as well as delaying the game for several months and likely going to be delaying it again, we have some leaks regarding the new Ubisoft Assassin's Creed game that's coming out after Shadows is done, as well as a lot of reports coming out about a strike that's going on. So like, subscribe, and let's get into it. So coming from that Park Place written by John of Trent, reports 700 Ubisoft employees strike company in response to return to office requirements believed to be an attempt to force resignations. So over the last week, between the 15th to the 17th, 700-ish Ubisoft employees went on strike against the company for a return to office policy. Now you must be thinking, what could possibly that be for? Are they requesting that employees come back 7 days a week, 14 hours a day, or something ridiculous like that? It must be if they're going to be striking over it so aggressively. Well, that would sound logical, but we're not dealing with logical people. We're dealing with ideologues who are only at this company because of what they have between their legs and what color their skin is. So no, it's 3 days a week. They're striking over 3 days a week. I wish I was making that up. Maybe John of Trent's making that up, but 3 days a week is all they're striking over. And the reason they're claiming that they think Ubisoft is making them return to the office, and the reason why they're striking is because they believe it will have consequences of its decision will be the loss of our colleagues' jobs, the disorganization of many games projects, and the drastic increase in psychosocial risks for those who remain. So they legitimately think Ubisoft is requiring them to return to office because they want them to quit, and so therefore they want people to quit and therefore lose their job, and then that's going to break the games being made and cause psychosocial... Oh, shut the fuck up already. They continue that this decision is announced immediately after the failure of the profit-sharing negotiations, meaning that they were trying to get an increase in salary that was denied, leading to the announcement of the return to work. So these people were begging for extra money without having to do anything, and then once they actually had to do something, they freak out. They continue whining like toddlers, saying that management was deaf to the proposal of the various employee representatives. And therefore the union continued to whinge. To express our anger, we call all Ubisoft employees in France to a first strike on October 15th, 16th, and 17th. And their demands to avoid or end the strike are a formal agreement on remote work with a due process of real negotiation between management and unions, not an arbitrary decision taken several months in advance, one of which guarantees that each person can freely choose its numbers of remote days and when they are in the week, as well as being counted by the month and not by the week. And then an immediate increase in all salaries to compensate for the drop in our living standards in recent years, the restoration of profit sharing at 60% objective, the end of gender pay gap, and a high increase in low salaries. Oh my goodness. And their final demand is that Ubisoft needs to listen to employees' opinions by the implementation of social dialogue worthy of the name. Management seems indeed to confuse monologue with dialogue. What a joke, man. What an absolute joke. Yeah, the company's falling apart. Yeah, none of us are qualified for our jobs. And yeah, none of us know how to use our engines that we require for this thing. And nothing is going our way. So how about you, Daddy Corpo, give me more money. Don't hold me to any kind of standards. Pay for our horrible voting decisions. Pay the untrained and unexperienced newbies even more than they already are. End the gender pay gap, which you supposedly already did. Oh my god. And listen to everyone when they give you any kind of criticism, because that's what we need more of. More toxic positivity that allows everyone to speak their mind when they have no idea what they're talking about. And reportedly around 700 employees did go on strike in France, with the outlet noted that AFP saw around 50 people on a picket line in Montpellier and more than 100 in Paris, with Ubisoft offices in Annecy and Lyon also affected. One employee informed the outlet how long will it be before they start laying off workers and downgrading their ambitions. She also described the atmosphere as gloomy. Well, you know what? You lazy bum who works at Ubisoft? Maybe you wouldn't have to be worried about getting laid off if you And this is a crazy idea. So hear me out. You wouldn't have to worry about getting laid off if you did your job, if you didn't strike at the minor piece of inconvenience that is a return to form. It's not like they're restricting you. It's not like they're pulling the rug out from underneath you. This is the return to form. This is a return to normalcy, not them preventing you from doing more things. And the fact of the matter is, they aren't even forcing you into a 5-day work week. They're only asking you to work 3 days a week. If that's too much for you to handle, then you probably shouldn't be working at a game development studio that has strict deadlines and are at the brink of bankruptcy or a buyout. So I hope the atmosphere is gloomy, because you guys really deserve it. And there's an expression that Neon over at Confish TV, Hale, likes to use when it comes to talking about this. You don't ask daddy for a pony when he just got fired. And that's exactly what they're doing here. Ubisoft is in the worst financial state they could find themselves in right now. They are doing absolutely atrocious. With their Q2 net bookings down by 30% what they were expecting them to be at, the fact that they haven't had a successful game in almost 10 years, and the fact that X-Defiant is doing so poorly that it needs to have a massive boon in the next season or they're shutting it down, and the fact they just delayed their tentpole title release of this quarter, as well as having to back down and upload all of their games to Steam so people actually buy them, because no one uses the Epic Games Launcher for paid games. This all comes ahead while they're dealing with the fact that a lot of people are speculating that Ubisoft is a company heading towards a buyout from Tencent or someone else, but the lead thought is Tencent. Given the fact that it sounds like, based on rumors that were told to Endymion TV, that Tencent was the company that really encouraged Yusuke to be the main character in Shadows, seemingly as though they expected it to have such a massive backlash in hopes that the company will be forced to downgrade their stocks to the point where Tencent can affordably buy them out, while Ubisoft allows it to happen, because they simply can't afford to not do it. And to make matters even better, their next big title that's coming out in the future after Assassin's Creed Shadows drop, the next Assassin's Creed game, Assassin's Creed Hexe, has some really bad press around it, both from Ubisoft directly, but mostly from a leaker who exposed most of this information to Endymion TV. In that, Ubisoft allegedly dreading the release of its upcoming Assassin's Creed Hexe after it was rumored to be the gayest Assassin's Creed yet. You know, I'm always very confused about this. So Hexe means witch in German. The whole point of this game is it's a witch-based game set in Salem, Massachusetts, which on the surface, I'm kind of okay with that, as long as they keep up with the magical logic that the games use for the first 3 games. Because there always was a magical undertone to Assassin's Creed, though they ditched that storyline as soon as they could after 3 ended, which is a shame, because I really like the whole idea of the Forerunner species that had all these super powerful scientific artifacts that were used as magical items throughout history. That was an interesting idea that you could really do something with. And they just never bothered to. And I didn't play enough of Origins, and I haven't played Valhalla or Odyssey to know what the magical implication of those games are, and I don't care to. But I just really don't get this. So this is a 3rd title announced in so many months that has the gayest ever, and it's about witches. And there's a lot of issues with that. First of all, are you going to go and call it the gayest thing ever and then put a bunch of lesbians into it? That makes no sense. Let's be entirely honest. Lesbianism was never the actual problem when it came to homosexuality for most people's views. Most people had a predominant issue with man-on-man homosexuality, not women-on-women. And while that was kind of looked down upon, it wasn't nearly as looked down upon as man-on-man. So when you make the gayest thing ever, shouldn't it be a bunch of guys? And I'm not saying that just because I have my own vetted interest in it. It's just the same old virtue signaling being done by a bunch of these lesbian, narcissistic activists who would much rather have a self-insert than tell a compelling story, or anything true whatsoever to reality. And like I said, the game's going to be set during the Salem witch trials, which is actually kind of a cool idea. I used to live up in Boston. Well, I live near Boston, which means I went to Salem fairly frequently, and I was really engrossed by the history there. I was like 10 years old when I lived there, but like it was really fascinating, every single thing we learned about it. And Salem is a perfectly rich place to put an Assassin's Creed game, because we kind of already had one near Salem during Assassin's Creed 3. And I will say the most fun part about playing Assassin's Creed 3 was seeing locations that I sort of recognized from the real world being there, given how in-depth Massachusetts has taken the preservation of their historical landmarks. Endymion continued with this leak that he's been told that this game will only have a single female protagonist, which on the surface I'm okay with as long as it's actually a well-written protagonist and not just another political activist mouthpiece. and also the most fantastical Assassin's Creed yet. There will be lots of mysticism, and will also have, as they said, very striking visuals. I don't know if that means an entirely different art style or anything, but that is what I was told. Once again, I can think of a few ways that could actually work. For instance, if it kind of looked like Senua's Hellblade, centered around the city of Salem, where there is a Forerunner artifact that's driving the locals insane, that could be something that's really interesting. I just double checked, the Forerunner species are called the Isu, so you could do a lot of interesting things by having an Isu artifact as the center of this mysticism. But of course, they're not going to do that because these people don't know how to write and they don't know the lore of their own games. Also, we need to bring back Desmond Miles and his story. Hell, you could use Hexe and their magic as a way to revive Desmond Miles. I would much prefer that to what we've been getting because Desmond's story was, in all honesty, and I know this is an unpopular opinion, the best part of the game. Because while the actual gameplay was phenomenal and the built-in story of the inner frame was really cool, the outer frame following Desmond was significantly more interesting, and I love the mythology of the world, such as the Isu. And Demon continues saying that this game is going to be very female power oriented and has lots of lesbian relationships. Once again, why is it that all these gayest evers are all lesbians? Come on, have a little bit of creativity, won't you? I thought you were after diversity, not uniformity. He also says that there will be very little masculine presence in the game. His leakers have told him that they think the game will be scaled down in the future and made into a Liberation-esque game, which was a smaller game set during the same time period as 3. It even has a crossover with Assassin's Creed 3, which follows a mulatto whose main goal is to liberate both African Americans and women in the middle of Alabama. It's a really fun game, and it has a much smaller contained storyline that follows a lot more on the individual characters' actions in that small framing than expanding that to the wider world. And it's not really an open world game because there's not a whole lot of world to go through. But it was a really interesting game, an interesting take, and I'm shocked they didn't do more games in that style. And when asked why it would likely get scaled down, he said that mostly because Ubisoft does not have confidence that Hexe will sell well at all. And it was put in development when a lot of these pandering were first being pitched or made. So that makes a lot of sense that this is being done during the time when all these things were being pitched, because you would literally get fired for pushing back against these ideas. And Deviant also says that he internally was being told by the developers of Hexe that they joked that the game will indeed piss off the fan base, but they wanted to make it anyway. I assume because the game is devoid of male characters, besides of course the ones that you probably kill or hunt, and like I said, it was going to have borderline magic at this point in the Assassin's Creed series. So expect lots of weird Isu gobbledygook, I guess, as well. But that's what I was told about Hexe so far. So hopefully they actually do keep the Isu part of the story, but I don't expect them to. I honestly expect them to not remember the Isu exists and just make it real magic. And I know that Isu stuff is mostly controversial and disliked by most of the fans, but as someone who likes those kind of weird pseudo-religious worlds, I really like the idea of Isu. And Demon also states that the game has already had 4 years of development time at this point, and there's another 2 years left at the very least if they don't make massive changes to the game, which, if they were smart, they probably would. Guillermo, the CEO of Ubisoft, said that his goal is to have Assassin's Creed games come out more regularly, but not for it to have the same experience every year, which once again isn't an issue. You could tell a lot of more smaller, confined stories about the Assassin's Creed world that would make a lot of sense. But you know what? Just talking about small games, I have an excellent game for you, Guillermo, that would allow for you to have a fully black protagonist that actually makes sense. You said it during the European colonialism of Africa, and you put the game in Ethiopia. You have the players playing as an assassin who works for the Ethiopian government, defending it against the Italian colonialization. There you go. Not only do you have a black protagonist, you have him killing all the white people you hate so much. Also, fuck the Italians. So Assassin's Creed really hasn't been doing too hot, and as a way to bolster sales, Ubisoft has released a large number of their Epic Store exclusive games over to Steam, with one of them being Assassin's Creed Mirage, which is actually a game that I kind of want to get, but let's see how it's doing. Assassin's Creed Mirage is sitting at a 24-hour peak of 5,000 players and an all-time peak of 7,870 players, which was yesterday, which makes sense because that was the Sunday following the game's launch. Now, as much as I hate Ubisoft and the fact that I'm a broke college student, I do kind of want to pick up this game because from what I'm told, this game is an absolute return to form. And I also like the idea of the fact that you're in a glitching animus, which means that you have powers related to glitches. There's an actual break in the encodement of the memories, so what you're doing in the game isn't actually accurate to what your character is doing in history, but is more the program trying to hold itself over to make sense of the glitches. At least that's as far as I understand to be Mirage. For all I know, I'm completely wrong. Like I said, I haven't played it, but it actually looks like an interesting game that actually follows the premises of Assassin's Creed, so I kind of want to buy it, even though I really don't want to support Ubisoft. Though if I buy it, that also means that I do officially, once again, own every single Assassin's Creed game, since I did buy the Assassin's Creed bundle when it was on a massive sale over 2 Christmases ago, which is actually a shame because I haven't touched either of them. But honestly, every time I hear some bad news about Ubisoft, I just get a little happy. I just giggle a little because they deserve it all. They made their bed and now they're laying in it. And the fact that their employees are striking over what's probably going to be the only thing that saves their company is absolutely ludicrous. Yeah, I honestly hope these people leave the company because they're clearly not fit to work at a gaming studio if they can't handle going into the office 3 days a week. It's honestly depressing to see that people are this fragile and need this much coddling for something so simple as a job. You're not supposed to enjoy your job. You're not supposed to have a good time. You're not supposed to work only the hours you want to. Otherwise, it's not a full-time job. Whatever your job tells you to do, as long as it's not unjust and completely unreasonable, you do it and you don't complain too loudly. And if you hate it that much, you find a different job. It's that simple. But that's pretty much what I've got. So let me know down in the comments if you guys think Ubisoft is actually going to get bought out by Tencent, or if they're even going to make any of these games, or they're just going to shelve Assassin's Creed Shadows, shelve Assassin's Creed Hexe, and just quit before they go bankrupt. But that's all I've got, so I will see you guys on the next one.